In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a few of the different methods and tools you can use to warp text and objects within Adobe Illustrator. To get started, let's just go ahead and create some text to work with. I'll just type warp here, select that object or text. So what we'll want to do is go up to Object, Envelope Distort, Make with Warp. This is going to be the first method we're looking at today. And once we have this warp options window pulled up, you want to make sure you have the preview box checked here, and that'll allow you to see in real time what it's doing to your text. As you can see, we've got a lot of options here for different styles we can warp this text in. And once we've picked a style, you can see here that we've got a lot of options for distorting it in different ways. So our bend option here will affect the severity of the warping and the direction of the warping. So you can see as I move past the center line, it warps in different directions. We can also change the direction the warp is applied in by toggling between vertical and horizontal. So this will change the axes in which your object's warping on. Down here we can further distort and customize the warp on the horizontal or vertical axes. This is essentially going to apply a squeezing effect on either the top, bottom, right, or left sides of your shape. So let's go ahead and set these both back to 0 and lock that in by hitting enter. Now there are a lot of options in there, as you could see. Here's just a quick document kind of showing all those different warp effects, and that's just kind of something you're going to want to go through and play with as you're creating your designs. So moving back to this shape, now that we've got it, we hit enter and selected this warp. If we want to edit this shape now, for example, to maybe change what it says or to change its color, you'll see if I select a color here, it won't change it. We're going to need to go up here to the upper left corner and toggle on this box here that says edit contents. And now I can go in, I can change the color, I could type a different word if I wanted. Now, generally speaking, when you type these words that you can see here, if I type a much longer word, it's creating some weird effects. It's condensing the text. So normally once this effect is applied, you're not going to want to change your type too much because it will affect the way that the object is warping. So I'll just undo that. And then the other way, of course, is if we want to now edit this more easily, if I change its color, apply outlines, etc., we could just go to Object, Expand, and this will no longer be editable text, but it will rather be a shape, and we can go in and edit specific anchor points if we want to affect how this shape is looking, apply outlines, etc. Now we can also apply all these warp effects on shapes. So if I were to make a rectangle here, as you can see, I can go to Object, Envelope Distort, Make with Warp, and I can go ahead and apply all of these same effects onto shapes. So if you're working with some text and you have a custom shape you want to warp it to, and the warp option tools are not really cutting it for you, you can also warp the text to a custom shape. So in this case, I'm just going to use a circle here. Type out sphere here. Alright. So I'm going to size this roughly to the same size as the circle. I grab both of these, go ahead and go to my Align panel and align them to center. Then what I'll want to do is make sure that this circle path here is on top. So we go to Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. Select both again and go ahead and go to Object, Envelope Distort, Make with Top Object. And what this is going to do is warp that text to the top object, which in this case was a circle. But again, you could really do any custom shape you wanted here to get some really unique looks. Alright, so before we move on to the final tool we're going to look at in this video, let's take a quick look at how we might use these warp effects in an actual design. So let's just say I wanted to create a quick banner design here. I'm going to go ahead and type out banner. For this design, I'm going to go ahead and use Gotham bold, and let's up the tracking to about 400. So I'll bring this down a bit. And then let's go ahead and create a rectangle. For this, I'm going to want a white fill and black outline. But you can always toggle this on by clicking this button right here in your color palette panel, and that will just set it to default, which is white fill and black stroke. So I'll create a rectangle around my text here. I set the stroke to about 6. Object, Arrange, Send to Back. All right, so now I've got this nice rectangle here around my type. Let's go ahead and make it a little bit bigger. Set that stroke back to 6. All right, so what I want to do now is select both of these. Go to Object, Envelope Distort, Make with Warp. I'm going to have Rise on, Bend 23%, anywhere 20 to 25% is good for this usually. I'll hit OK. Next, what I'm going to want to do is bring my rectangle tool back out, and I'll go ahead and create a rectangle here that's roughly the same height as my banner. Go ahead and apply that 6-point stroke to it as well, and I'll just drag it up here like so. Now I'll go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back, and then what I'm going to do is bring out my Add Anchor Point tool. Add an anchor point on this left path here with the direct selection tool. Just while holding Shift, just pull that in towards the center a bit to create a nice end cap here for the banner. And now I'll just align that on that intersection there and the edge of this centerpiece. Now I'll go ahead and hold Alt and drag, bring this over, snap it to that same intersection, hold Shift and rotate, bring this around 180 degrees, and now I've just quickly made a nice simple banner design here. Alright, the final tool we're going to look at is the Shear Tool. So this is a very helpful tool for skewing text and objects. Just to give a quick demonstration, if I make a rectangle here, I can bring up my Shear Tool. Now, depending on what toolbar you have active, this might be hidden underneath the Scale tool, which is 2 little rectangles overlapping with an arrow. If you click and hold on that tool, then you can bring up the Shear Tool here. Now, with an object selected, what you can do is click and hold on one of the sides to skew it like so. Without holding Shift, you can get some free form action here like this, or if you hold the Shift key, then you can just skew along that axis for a cleaner skewed look. Now you can also do this with text and with groups of objects. So to show you that, I'm just going to go ahead and type something out here like so. I'll go ahead and just make a couple duplicates here. So, and then I'll go ahead and color each of these. Let's just pick a quick yellow color. Maybe a second one here. We'll do a magenta. Let's turn that to a stroke. And then we'll select this last one here and do a teal color. And then we can go ahead and select all of these, bring our shear tool up, and then as you can see, we can go ahead and move these around as we like. Now, it does give this, when you're working with text with the shear tool, you do get this blue filled in shape, which for me, I don't love. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do first is go ahead and expand these out. And then when I bring up my shear tool here, I can move these with the wire form, which I prefer. And maybe I just wanna create this kind of off-axis perspective effect here. Do that really quickly and easily with the shear tool. I can now grab these, go to Object, Envelope, Distort, Make with Warp, and maybe just apply a very slight rise effect here. All right, that looks good to me. Throw a quick background on this. And that's just a quick example of how you can use the shear tool and the warping tools with text or objects to create simple, unique designs like this. So that's just a couple quick examples of how you can use the warp effects within Adobe Illustrator. You can obviously go for some much crazier designs. If we see here using some of these different warp effects, you'll get much more drastic examples. And you can also, of course, use some of the more complicated warping tools, which we'll cover in later videos to get some more precise effects. But really for now, just try to play around with these different warp effects. There's a lot of different unique looks you can get, and it's really best to just kind of experiment and see what you can come up with.